So, why don't you tell me about the first time you met Dad?
You already know.
Yeah, but tell the story again.
I went across the street from the campus at Los Angeles City College where there was a Hillel house, and I went to put my name in for a Shabbat dinner. I'm not sure what day of the week I went there to do that, but it had to be a couple days before. And then I was walking across campus back to go to one of my classes, and I saw a guy talking to
Doc, I'll turn this off.
a woman, student. They both looked like students. And the next thing I knew is he kind of caught up to me and started walking with me and told me he saw me in the Hillel office, and we started talking, and he said he was going to the Shabbat dinner that Friday night and he would see me there.
Okay, so you get to the Shabbat dinner that Friday night. You didn't think, oh no, I don't want to go, this guy's going to be there. So you go to the Shabbat
No,
dinner,
I
and did he walk
wanted
up
to.
to you? What happened?
I really don't remember how that happened. What happened at the Shabbat dinner? I was meeting people. After all, I didn't know anyone. At the school, I was all by myself.
So that must have taken some courage on your part to simply go to the Shabbat dinner in the first place.
I always did things like that. I have no qualms about going places myself. I don't know how I felt at that time, but later on in my life, I never had any feelings like, oh, I can't go to this party because I'm by myself. A lot of people don't do that. I have friends at this stage of my life who won't go to a movie alone, by themselves. I mean, for years, I've been going. I don't really want to go in the evening by myself, but I go anytime during the day to a movie. I've it's something I do. I traveled by myself. I went on tours all by myself in a tour group, though. I mean, to Europe. I'm not even talking about next door. So I don't remember if I
Well, you
saw
must
him.
remember your first date. Like, so you saw him at the Shabbat dinner, and then what happened?
I don't know. I think maybe he took me home, maybe, but I didn't. I lived only maybe at that time I was living a little further from the campus. I don't remember if he had a car. I don't remember, but I think he asked me to go to a movie, and we went to a movie either the following week or I don't know.
So when did you realize it was serious?
I don't know. We just kept seeing each other. I don't know. And
were you looking to
and
meet somebody and get married? What was
well,
on your
of
mind?
course. Well, I was looking to get married because in my day you didn't have sex before marriage, so you had to get married.
So you were interested in having sex?
No, I was interested in getting married because in my generation, if you were 21, you were considered a spinster.
Were you one of the last of your friends to get married?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I don't know how many friends, I can't say everyone, but a couple of my closer friends got married before me.
What about your sisters? Were they married younger than you?
They were all 20 when both of them were 20 when they got married. My sister Anita was like 20 and a half, and Eunice was just past her 20th birthday.
I remember as a kid thinking that you were older when you got married and when you had me.
Well, I was older because I got married before 2 weeks before my 21st birthday.
21st
First,
birthday?
yes.
I thought it was later than that.
No, I got married in 1950.
Yeah, that makes sense, right.
6, and I would have been 21. I was 21 in August. We got married in July, just 2 weeks. And most of my friends who were already, a couple of friends who were already married, they got pregnant after a year of marriage, a little more than a year of marriage. The thing was that three of my good friends did not go to college. They went to community college for a semester or two, and then they went to work.
So you and Dad made a conscious decision not to have kids right away?
Yes, when I married your father, he had 1 year of school to finish
For his math.
teaching credential.
Okay.
He was getting a secondary credential, and that required 5 years, an extra year above a BA to get that credential. And he was doing classes and student teaching that year. And so we lived on my salary, which was $270 a month, but our rent was $80. And he got $155 for being a veteran a month. And so then he got a job, and I quit my job because I didn't like it. Then I had trouble finding a job. I should not have quit my job until I had another job, but I thought, oh, I'm going to be able to get a job. And I finally did get a job at CBS Radio in Hollywood. And then we got the opportunity to move to Chicago.
I was just about to ask that. Like, why was that difficult for Dad to do? I mean, he had one sister who had already moved away from town, but his entire family was in LA.
Well, my family was in Chicago.
But you had Antonita in LA.
Yeah, and my father offered him the sale of an apartment building that he wouldn't have to put any money down on, and moved to Chicago. And that's what we did. We moved to Chicago. He got it before we moved. He had a job. He had already worked maybe 1 year, 56, 57, at a junior high school teaching, LeConte Junior High School, I think it was. And so he was able to get a job in Winnetka, Illinois, a suburb north of Chicago, which is a very upscale suburb, very waspish suburb. A lot of big business executives and stuff like that lived there. And we decided to move. I was working for CBS Radio, and they offered me a job at CBS Radio in Chicago, downtown Chicago. And we put our furniture in storage, thinking that we would, stay a year and see how it went.
Oh, your furniture was in storage here in Los Angeles.
In Los Angeles. We didn't move our
And you didn't have your degree yet, did you?
No, I had quit school. When he was finishing school, I went, each semester I took a class at Los Angeles State College. And when I moved to Los Angeles, I wanted to go to UCLA. And I applied to UCLA as a junior.
I remember you telling me this story.
Yeah, and they came back. I didn't realize there were no college advisors or things like that in those days. If there were, I didn't know about it. I had no family support to go to college. No one really.
You were the first one in your family?
No, my sister Anita.
Anita went to college.
And she went to 4 years of college. She got a degree.
Where'd she go?
Well, she started at DePaul University in Chicago, a liberal arts college, even though it's a Catholic college, but it's liberal arts. And then she went to the University of Illinois in Urbana because she was very intellectual and was not sociable. And my mother thought that she needed to meet a man to get married. So when she went to a summer session and a full year living away, Urbana, Champaign-Urbana, Illinois, it was called, was probably maybe 3 hours, I think, south
Mm-hmm.
of Chicago. And sure enough, she met a guy, Manny Karbelnig, but she finished out the year, and then she came back to Chicago, and she went to Roosevelt University. It was called Roosevelt College. It was a private college in downtown Chicago, and she got a degree in psychology. But we didn't have any family push to do this. And,
But that's still pretty amazing that two of you got degrees, I would think.
well,
Two women.
when I graduated high school and I went to Wright Community College, then I transferred to the University of Illinois Chicago campus, which was at Navy Pier. And I guess I went there for a year and a half. That's why I thought that I could apply to UCLA as a junior. But I had no required courses in California. And I think I needed 2 classes, and I should have probably reapplied as a sophomore. Anyway, and they suggested I go to Los Angeles City College and get those requirements, and I could still take a couple of more classes that I would get unit credit for when I applied to UCLA. But during that time, I met your father, and so he was going to LA, it was called LA State College, which was sharing the campus with Los Angeles City College, in Hollywood area, I guess. And so I decided, instead of applying to UCLA, that I would also go to Los Angeles State College, which when I was applying in a January, mid-year, they were moving to a brand new campus that only had 1 or 2 buildings in East LA. And they had a bus that would leave the LA City College, because not all of LA State College classes were held there. But my classes were, because I decided I would major in education. So they had a bus that I would take in the morning or whenever, and a shuttle bus that they did from the Hollywood campus, which was probably a 20-25-minute ride to East LA. And sometimes I would take, from the East LA campus, I would take a public bus and go into downtown Los Angeles. They had a big 7-story Bullock's department store and a May company, and the library. They had a big library, Los Angeles Central Library. The LA State College at some time became Cal State University at LA, and there's many campuses. Marla went to get her master's also her credential and master's at California, Cal State Northridge,
Mm-hmm.
which used to be called Valley State College. You know, so they all changed names. Your father got his master's degree at Long Beach State,
Right.
Cal State. They had about 18 campuses, I think.
Mm-hmm.
in
Okay,
California.
so let's talk about something different. If you don't mind, let's talk about when Dad left.
No, I don't want to talk about that.
No?
No.
Okay.
That's a part of my life that I don't need to talk about. I like to talk about good things. Your father was a good father. He was a good husband. He provided, and that's the main thing. I think his intellect and his knowledge passed on to all of your kids. He was a public servant, and all my children are public servants, which makes me very proud. They're not in it for the, quote, money. And although when we moved to Chicago, we moved there because the opportunity to own an apartment building would give us more money. And it did. It did provide.
So I didn't know that you were moving to Chicago with the thought that you'd be there just a year.
Well, we started, but while in Chicago, I got pregnant.
Right.
And we decided, he was doing well. He acquired a second apartment building, courtesy of my father, that required no down payment. That was the big thing. And
How many apartment buildings did your father own?
my father had many, in addition to his business, but he didn't have the apartment buildings always. Later on, he acquired one or two. They were not good. They were not in good areas. They were run down. He fixed them up.
I mean, are we talking like 4, 5, or 6, or 15 or 20?
No, maybe about 10 different buildings.
And what happened to all of that when he died?
Okay, so the first thing that happened is how he got started in the apartment buildings. He was in the glass business. He had his business in a storefront with the plant or the factory, although he didn't manufacture, in the back of the store. And he owned 2 storefronts next door.
He owned or rented them?
No, he owned them and he rented them out. So he was a landlord, so to speak. I want to say in about 1948, the city took his property for the Congress Street Expressway in Chicago. At the same
Is
time,
that still called that, or is it a freeway now? Or something?
I think it might be called the Roosevelt Freeway or the.
Okay.
I'm not sure. It was the Congress Street
But it wasn't just a
Expressway.
road, it was like a freeway
It
kind of thing.
was a freeway kind
Yeah, okay.
of thing, and it went from the lake, or a little tiny bit west of the lake, all the way out to the western suburbs.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the same time, the apartment building that we lived in, that we rented, 3-bedroom, we called it a 6-room apartment with double plumbing.
Mm-hmm.
And the landlord raised our rent from $62 a month to $87 or something like that. And so my father took the money that he got from the city and he bought another apartment building in Austin, 5000 West in Austin. And so we moved into an apartment that was also a 3-story building, 3 apartments. It didn't have double plumbing though. But by then, I think Anita was out.
Double plumbing means 2 bathrooms
Yeah.
in the apartment, right?
Right. One was only actually a half bath, but it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Anita had moved out or was moving out about that time because she got married in 1949, 48 maybe. Anyway, someplace she got married in 48 because Eunice got married in 52 and I got married in 56. So, so we lived there. So he took half the money and bought that apartment building, and then he bought a storefront, not on the west side, a little bit northwest, that had a big to put his business, and that had a big apartment upstairs of the store. And I don't remember how big, but it had at least 3 bedrooms, probably. And he took that apartment and he made it into 2 small apartments, adding a bathroom and kitchen and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so he rented out 2 small apartments, and that got him into the rental. He liked that.
Right. So when he died, what happened to all that property?
Well, my mother, he had, at that point, his glass business was kind of drying up because he did automobile windows, but he didn't do curved windshields, and curved windshields were coming in, and automatic door windows. He only worked on windows, side windows that were hand cranks. He did furniture desktops, but they started becoming metal and didn't need glass,
Right.
and so his business, I think, was drying up, and he had at one time he had maybe 4 or 5 employees, and he kept 1 or 2 of them to go with him fixing up these apartment buildings. So he would buy one here and one there. They weren't slums. And he had to fix them up because they had inspectors, and sometimes I guess you could pay an inspector off in Chicago.
You wanted to put that by your dad?
Well, I think that he had to fix them up to a certain amount. I don't know whether he, paid every one of them off. I think he had to do the for health reasons. He had to do certain.
So when he died, though, that must have been the
So
height
my
of his
mother-
ownership, right?
My mother started with her friend, with her Margie, who lived with us. They would go to the apartments. They would have someone else collect rents, and then she started selling them off. And a couple of them were condemned.
And so it's through the sales of, because I was just thinking, your mom lived for another 30 years after your dad died.
Right, she died.
And so she had to have a source of income. Was that all of these apartments?
She had the apartments, she got cash from the apartments, but I think later on she only had whatever cash she had, and she had paid into Social Security, and I'm not sure how she got. She always seemed to have,
Oh, so you don't really even know. You don't know if Eunice and Lenny supported her.
No,
to some
they
degree?
didn't support her. No, she sold the buildings, and so maybe she had the money. I mean, not all the buildings went for nothing. Some of the buildings she had to get money for.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk about Margie. When did Margie appear?
Margie appeared when I was 9 months old. My mother needed help. She had 3 kids, and my mother was not an educated lady. Not that that means anything. I'm sure she was,
Well, certainly there are other people who were caring for 3 kids while their husbands worked all day.
I know, and I don't know. Margie came. She was 18 years old. She was an orphan. She had no mother, maybe, and she came from a large family in Joliet, Illinois, and she came as a nanny, and she lived with us. And she got a day off a week, and she got an evening off a week. She went to a movie. She went, I don't know.
But she was paid.
She was paid. She
So-
got
so-
room and board and pay.
Talk about the transition of her being a paid employee, essentially, to then being your mom's companion. Because I
Well-
would imagine she didn't receive income, or, I mean, what was that relationship like later in her life?
Well,
While your mom was still alive.
while my mom was still alive, she still got paid. Not a lot, but she got her room and board, and she got paid. And she didn't have to spend any money to speak of.
So how did your mom approach that relationship? How did Margie approach that
Well, when my
relationship?
father died, my mother, who was like 53 or 54, was young. My father was 10 years older than she was, needed help. And when my father died, I was already married with 2 kids. But she stayed and helped. She worked in the business with my mother.
No, I understand. I remember that too. But like, was there a relationship of being friends? What was their
I mean,
relationship?
They lived together. And when my mother went to Eunice's house, Margie went too.
I remember Margie went everywhere.
Yes.
Whenever your mom visited here, Margie
Yes,
came.
Margie came. Margie was like a help to my mother, who couldn't read or write, and was afraid. My mother lived through the pogrom in the 20s in Poland.
She would tell you stories of that?
Well, she said the Cossacks came to the door.
Okay, we gotta stop for a second.